What makes a color image a great candidate to be a black and white image? And that's the question for this week's video. And it's a question that I hear discussed and debated a lot about. And it's a question that I get a lot too is, how do you know when an image should be converted to black and white? What images don't need to have a color treatment and would look better with a black and white treatment? And I don't really think there is so much a black and white answer, a cut and dry answer to that question. And it's a very subjective thing. And there's a lot of opinions that have to be, factored into determining, a right or a wrong answer to that question. But it's something that I've thought about for years, and I've done a lot of research on it to determine, what makes a good candidate for black and white photography. And it's an interesting topic too. Because, whenever I go out on location, I never have in my mind that I'm going to create a black and white photo for a specific scene. And I absolutely never shoot in black and white. It's always something, I always shoot everything in color, get all the information, and then when I get it back in post, if I decide to put a black and white treatment on at that point, then I definitely have that option available to me. But, it was one of my goals for 2018 is to not shoot more black and white, but shoot with black and white in mind more often. And I've definitely been doing that this year. And once I get the images back home in post and I'm looking through them, sometimes color is needed for a particular image. And sometimes the color is maybe a distraction and it's not needed. Nevertheless, I've really kind of come up with 3 questions that I always end up asking myself that I kind of go through to help me determine, which images will work in black and white and which images won't. And this is by no means the right or wrong answer. What works for me might not work for you, or what works for someone else might not work for me, but this has definitely been a good guideline for myself to kind of steer me down the right path. And the first question is, I always ask myself, does the particular photo, does it need the color? What I mean by need the color, color is fantastic at not only catching the viewer's attention, but also setting the stage, creating the foundation and telling the story. It's fantastic at depicting seasons, fall, winter, spring, summer. It's also fantastic at determining or depicting the time of day that the photo is captured. So was it captured in the morning? Was it captured in the afternoon or in the evening or the nighttime? And it's also great at showing temperature. So was the photo taken, is it warm when this photo was taken? Is it a hot scene? Is it a cold scene? So color is really great at just setting the stage and creating that foundation for the photo. And a lot of images need that. So here's an image that I just captured this past weekend in North Carolina in the mountains, and I went there just for the fall colors. I was maybe about a week too early, but nevertheless, this image is all about the fall colors here. If I were to convert this to black and white, and what I always do too, Lightroom Classic CC has got great black and white presets, and I always just kind of scroll through, just kind of highlight a couple, and it gives you a quick preview of whether or not, or what your image will look like in black and white. Just that way I don't have to go through and fuss around with creating an entire black and white color treatment for black and white treatment for each individual image. This is a real quick way just to determine whether or not it's even going to work or if it looks good to you. So this image, so if I just scroll through here, like this right here, black and white soft, when I look at this photo now, I have no idea, was this fall? Is it spring? Is it summer? I guess you can tell it's not winter because there's leaves on the trees, but you get what I'm saying. The black and white treatment completely sucks out the seasonality effect that this photo had. And for me, this whole image is not about the waterfall. It's all about the color in these trees. And the black and white just completely transforms that. So this is an image that I would say absolutely should not be processed in black and white for me. Now, this next image here, this is an image that there's not a lot of color in it. There's not a lot of vibrant colors. It's a very subdued or muted color palette. There's not a lot of vibrant colors in the rising sun. There's nothing much in the water or the rocks or the land or the trees here. So this might be a good candidate for a black and white treatment. So if I just kind of scroll through some of these here, you can actually see that this works a lot better than the previous image because it doesn't change the story at all. I thought that this particular image In color was kind of a moodier image. The black and white almost kind of makes it even more moodier, but it doesn't change the image. So I think this would be a good candidate because I don't think this image in color really needs the color. I kind of like the black and white too. I like the color as well, and a lot of times I'll do 2 versions of an image if it works. And the next question I always I want to think to myself or ask myself is, does a particular image have interesting light or interesting shadows or contrast? Because black and white photography is fantastic at enhancing shadows and highlights or light part components of your scene, or versus darker areas of your scene. And this image is a great example of that. We have the rising sun here, kind of cutting through the trees, and you have all this nice light. It was kind of a foggy morning, and have these really great areas of highlights versus shadows at the bottom here. And this image is all about the light. It's not so much about the color. This image is really nothing but yellows and greens, and the purpose of the image, or my favorite component of the image, is not the color, it's the light. So if I kind of just scroll through some of these options here, you can kind of see and get a quick idea. I like the low contrast look here, where the black and white, it removes all the color, and your eye kind of instantly goes to the light and it goes to the shadow areas of the image. And that's ultimately what the purpose of the image was. So I think that this image really works good with a black and white treatment applied to it, because it kind of takes away the color, and that color is somewhat of a distraction because that takes away the attention from the highlights and shadows of this photo. So I think this is a good example of a color image that works well in black and white. And here's another image. Now this photo here doesn't have great light. There was a storm that was passing by at the same time that the sun was setting, so there is some nice color in the sky. But outside of the center area here, there really is no color going on in this image. There is a lot of great contrast though against the silhouette of the mountain range here. This is the Nepali coast in Hawaii, against the color in the sky. So there is some interesting contrast here. So this could possibly be a good candidate as well. And if we just kind of highlight on a couple of these, you just get a quick idea that, what a black and white processing treatment would look like for this particular image. So anything that's got interesting contrast or interesting light, that would be a good candidate for black and white as well. And then the final component, this is probably my favorite thing about black and white photography, and it's the final question I always ask myself. And is the image, or does it have any interesting texture associated with it? And if you have something that's got some good texture and you shoot your photo at a time of day, and during sunrise or sunset, when you get that nice beautiful side light that's going to rake across whatever's the texture of your subject, that's going to be a great key ingredient to a possible fantastic black and white image. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So this, of course, is an image of the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's got great side light lighting up these trees and really kind of showing a lot of the texture and a lot of the grittiness associated with the feeling of these trees. And this would be a good example of a great black and white image for converting. So if I just go over here and let's just click on flat, or actually low contrast, just let my computer render that. It just really shows off a lot of the texture here, especially up here. You can just see all of the rawness or the grittiness of the tree. And I think that, like, when we think about black and white photography, at least I do, I think of a very raw color palette, black and white. It's got a certain toughness to it and an edge to it. And I think you throw some texture on it, that's a very good recipe for a fantastic black and white image. And here's another image here. This is, once again, this is the Nepali coast. It has these kind of razor edge fins on its mountain range, and the sun is actually setting right here, and it's just raking across these fins, and you can see a lot of the texture here. So, once again, this would be a great image for black and white as well, because it's just going to show off a lot of the light and a lot of the texture here. So you can see the difference. The green is almost a distraction. It kind of takes your eye away from what's most important with this image, and that's really just the light and the texture. I'll go back and forth here. This is a good example. where you can see is the green is kind of a distraction. It's not really adding anything to it. And then if I go over to the left here to highlight flat, all you see now is the light against the mountain and the texture of it. So I think that's a great example as well. And one more here, this is Bass Harbor Lighthouse at Acadia National Park. And the sun is setting, it's casting beautiful side light on these rocks here. And obviously there's stone, so there's a lot of texture with it. And if I highlight some of these presets, you can just see exactly what it would look like. I mean, it adds a lot of character to the rock, a lot of toughness, and like I said, that kind of edgy quality that black and white is associated with, and it just adds almost like you can just feel the texture a little bit more. So if you look for images that have got a good amount of texture to it, especially if you could find the texture in the foreground, that's a great example of an image that could be converted to black and white. So those are the three questions I always kind of ask myself internally, and it helps me to get a little bit closer to finding what images work better and need color versus what images don't need the color, and maybe the color is a distraction, and I really want to highlight the light and the shadows of an image, or the highlights of an image, and that's usually a great recipe for a fantastic black and white image. So, and I'm curious if there's something I didn't mention that you possibly think about when you're going through your process of determining what images should be in color versus what images should not be. Definitely leave it in the comment section below. I'm always looking for additional tidbits of information related to that topic. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. And as always, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below, and I guarantee I'll get back in touch with you. And if you enjoyed the video, if you could give me a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. It definitely lets me know that the direction the channel is moving is in the right one. So it's greatly appreciated. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you all next week. Bye.